I was born in the 90s, and in middle school, I became addicted to romance dramas. Whenever I saw the unwavering love between the male and female protagonists, especially when the man takes care of the woman, I would feel envious. And I'd hope that I too could have such a love one day. I thought that finding someone who loved me and sticking together through thick and thin would be the happiest and most meaningful way to live my life. In April 2009, shortly after I had found God, I met Winbin. He was 4 years older than me, and he was guileless, sincere, mature, stable, and he was really thoughtful and caring toward me. Whenever I got in a bad mood with him, he would always put up with me. Usually, when something happened, he would first ask for my opinion, and he would always go along with me and respect my choices. I felt comfortable with him. Our relatives and friends also envied me, and they said that Winbin was always so accommodating, and that such a person was hard to find these days. I was immersed in the sweetness of love, and I'd often feel lucky to have such a considerate boyfriend. As I read more of God's words, I understood that God's work in the last days through his incarnation is to save and perfect mankind, bringing those who sincerely believe in God and can accept his judgment and be purified into the next age, and that this is the final step in God's work to save mankind. My parents also often fellowshiped with me about the significance of believing in God, reminding me to cherish this opportunity of great rarity. I wanted to preach the gospel to Winbin. What a joy it would be if we could both believe in God, pursue the truth together, and be saved and enter the kingdom together in the end. So I subtly tried to find out his attitude toward faith. He didn't believe in God, and he believed that a person's destiny is in their own hands. He said, "We're young, and everything should be about money." He also told me not to listen to my parents when they talked about believing in God, and that there was no God in this world. Hearing him say these things made me feel indescribably uncomfortable. I'd originally thought we could both believe in God, but I'd never expected him to be an atheist. What was I to do? I had seen that some brothers and sisters whose families didn't believe in God had been hindered and persecuted by them, which was so painful. Just like my cousin, before she got married, she was active in doing her duties and preaching the gospel in various places. But her husband, an atheist, persecuted and obstructed her faith after they got married. And every day they were either arguing or fighting. Later, my cousin couldn't even attend gatherings, and in the end, she was forced to get a divorce, and the child was given to the father. She'd feel really sad every time she thought of her kid. I didn't want to endure such a marriage or such pain. Winbin didn't believe in God, so if he persecuted me after we got married, would I be able to stand firm? For a while, I didn't know what to do. In my pain, I prayed to God. God, I didn't expect Winbin to be an atheist. After being together for so long, I've put in too great an emotional investment. I can't bear to let go of this relationship. But if I stay with him and he stands in the way of my faith because we're on separate paths, what would I do then? God, I am too small in stature. Please guide me to make the right choice. In the days that followed, I kept reading God's words on how to approach marriage, and I came to understand that there are principles in choosing a partner. It's important to find someone like-minded, with good humanity and who wouldn't stand in the way of my faith. Winbin didn't believe in God. We weren't like-minded or on the same path, and sooner or later we would break up. The more feelings I invested, the more pain I'd feel later. During that time, whenever I thought about this, my heart ached. I couldn't bear the idea of breaking up. But if we stayed together, we'd be walking different paths. My heart was really conflicted, so I told God of my pain and difficulties and asked for His help. Before I knew it, it was March 2011, and Winbin's family was asking us to get engaged. I had to make a choice. In my heart, I clearly knew that Winbin didn't believe in God, and that we couldn't reach the end of the same path together. But I still held some hope, thinking, I've never formally testified to him about God's work, and I'm not sure about his attitude toward the truth. If he doesn't believe in God, but doesn't obstruct my faith, we could still stay together. So I decided to talk to him about my faith in God and see how he would react. I never expected that as soon as he heard that I believed in God, he clenched his fist in anger and smashed it into the wall. His actions shocked me, and by the time I'd recovered, his hand was already bleeding. When I saw he was about to keep hitting the wall, I quickly grabbed his hand, but he forcefully pulled away. When I saw his abnormal behavior, his very cold expression and the hatred in his eyes, he felt like a stranger. And I was scared, thinking, is this still the boyfriend who used to agree with everything I said? Why does he have such an attitude when he hears that I believe in God? I just believe in God, and I haven't done anything wrong. Why is he reacting like this? In my heart, I kept praying. God, if he truly obstructs my faith, I am willing to break up with him. But I am too small in stature, and I can't let go of this 2-year relationship we've shared. Please give me the strength to make the right choice. After praying, I shared my experience of being protected by God, and I made it clear where I stood. He was silent for a while, then agreed not to stand in the way of my faith. We agreed that if he ever stood in the way of my faith, we would break up. He was initially stunned when he heard this, but he still agreed. Winbin's brother and sister-in-law had good humanity and believed in the existence of God. So I testified to them about God's work of the last days. When Winbin found out, he exploded in anger, and in front of his family he told me to get out and said that he never wanted to see me again. He slammed down his phone forcefully in front of me. I had never seen him so angry before. With hatred in his voice, he said, I won't stand in the way of your faith, but don't try and preach to my family. Seeing how resistant he felt toward my faith, I became worried, thinking, he said he wouldn't stand in the way of my faith, but that's because he doesn't know that I attend gatherings and do duties. If he finds out, will he try to stand in my way? If he does, we will inevitably argue, and our marriage may break down. What should I do then? My heart felt conflicted. If we broke up, I may never meet another person who loves me like this again. Then what would be the point of my living? But if we didn't break up, we'd be sure to keep arguing. Then what happiness could there be in a life like that? Just thinking about this made my heart ache with anguish, and I was caught in a dilemma. Later, I realized we had obvious differences in some of our views on things. For example, he said that after we got married, we should open a restaurant, earn money to buy a car, a house, and so on. I said, how much money a person can earn is already ordained by heaven, and we just need enough to live on. Money isn't the most important thing in life. Believing in and worshiping God is the right path in life. He said unhappily, what's the point of living if you don't make money? How will you eat or drink without money? You have no ambition. Such arguments happened frequently, and I felt exhausted. Every time we had a disagreement that caused unhappiness, I would wonder, is this the happiness I wanted? Why can't I feel happy? What is the most meaningful thing to pursue in life? How can I avoid wasting this life of mine? I prayed to God. God, I originally thought living with Winbin would bring happiness, and that this was the life I'd always dreamed of. But things are not as I thought. We walk different paths and have no common ground, so my heart can never find a liberation. Every day I have to secretly read your words and attend gatherings because I'm afraid of arguing over these things. God, I am in great pain, and I want to break free from these affections. But deep inside, I can't bear to let go of this relationship. Please help me. Later, Winbin seemed to have sensed something. Several times when I came back after going out, he would ask all sorts of questions. At first, I didn't give this much thought, until one day, I got ready early and was about to leave for a gathering. His usual gentle tone changed, and he looked very serious, saying, "Tell me the truth. Are you going to a gathering again?" I said, "I am. What of it? Didn't you say you wouldn't stop me from believing in God?" He said, "Back then, if I disagreed, you would have broken up with me. How could I not have said that? I thought over time your will to believe in God would weaken, and you would stop believing. I never expected you to become even more obsessive in the past 6 months. I can't take it anymore. You've got to choose between me and your faith. If you choose me, you've got to give up your faith." I knew if we stayed together, there would be constant arguments, and that this dispute would just be the beginning. But if we really did break up, I would still feel very reluctant and not want to give up this relationship. But if I chose to be with Winbin, I would have to give up my faith. This was the key moment for God to perfect people, and I'd also come to firmly believe that Almighty God's words are the truth, the way, and the life. And through experiencing God's work, I had experienced how God's words can cleanse people, resolve their corrupt dispositions, and point people to the correct direction and path in their behavior and self-conduct. The truth that God gives to people is truly precious. So if I missed this opportunity, it would be a lifelong regret. How was I to choose between my faith and marriage? I was torn, and I silently prayed to God. I thought about a passage of God's words I had read in a gathering.
Almighty God says, "Behind every step of work that God does on you is Satan's wager with God. Behind it is a battle. When God and Satan do battle in the spiritual realm, how should you satisfy God? And how should you stand firm in your testimony to Him? You should know that everything that happens to you is a great trial and the time when God needs you to bear testimony."
God's words made me understand that on the surface, it looked like Winbin was stopping me from following God. But in reality, Satan was causing disturbances from behind the scenes. Both God and Satan were watching how I'd choose, and I had to bear witness for God. I got my emotions under control and calmly said, "I choose to believe in God." Winbin made his stance clear. He would rather break up than allow me to believe in God. I felt deeply dejected, and afterward, I couldn't help but break down in tears. I didn't expect that after all these years, our relationship would actually come to this point. In my pain, I prayed to God, asking Him to help me understand His intention in this matter and stand firm in my testimony. Later, I read God's words and understood what I should pursue in my faith.
Almighty God says, You must suffer hardship for the truth. You must sacrifice yourself for the truth. You must endure humiliation for the truth. And you must undergo more suffering for the sake of gaining more of the truth. This is what you should do. You must not throw away the truth for the sake of the enjoyment of family harmony, and you must not lose a lifetime of dignity and integrity for the sake of temporary enjoyment. You should pursue all that is beautiful and good, and you should pursue a path in life that is more meaningful. If you lead such a mundane and worldly life and do not have any goal to pursue, isn't this wasting your life? What can you gain from such a life? You should forsake all enjoyments of the flesh for the sake of one truth, and should not throw away all truths for the sake of a little enjoyment. People like this have no integrity or dignity. There is no meaning to their existence.
Pondering God's words, I understood that marriage is not the most important thing in life, and that believing in God, gaining the truth, and knowing God are what make life meaningful. In the last days, God incarnate has come among humans to express the truth and judge and cleanse people in order to save them from Satan's power and grant them eternal life. But I only focused on temporary physical enjoyment. I was unwilling to suffer and pay a price to gain the truth and the life. What could I gain in the end by living this way? When the great catastrophes come, who would be able to save me? In the past, I thought marriage was beautiful, and that spending your life with someone who loves you made life meaningful. But now I realized that I'd been too naive. Winbin and I were on different paths. Winbin didn't believe in God. He worshipped science, and he sought ways to make money and live a superior life. Whereas I believed in being content with just having food and clothing, and that people should pursue the truth and seek to live out real human likenesses in life, fulfill the duties of created beings, and gain the Creator's approval. Our views on things and the goals of our pursuit were completely different, so we had no common ground. Even though he was very considerate and caring toward me, I still felt pain and repressed inside. When with him, I had to attend gatherings and read God's words in secret, for fear that he would argue with me, and I felt extremely constrained and exhausted inside. If I had to live like that for a lifetime, it would be too painful. God's words made me understand that the most important things in life are for a person to pursue the truth, to fulfill the duty of a created being, and to complete the mission given by the Creator. Such a person is seen as precious in the eyes of the Creator and lives a meaningful and valuable life. Just like Peter, he spent his life focused on pursuing the truth and fulfilling his duty to satisfy God, and in the end, he received God's approval. After understanding this, I was even more certain that choosing to walk the path of faith in God was the correct choice. I then actively devoted myself to the ranks of those doing their duties. After some time, Winbin and his parents suddenly came to my house. Winbin, with tears streaming down his face, said, "I can't let go of this relationship, but I just can't accept your faith. For my sake, can't you give up your faith? Let's live a good life together." His parents also urged me to give up my faith. I realized that this was another choice I had to make. I calmed down and thought, if Winbin truly loves me, he should support my faith. He opposes my faith so much. Is this true love? No, I can't compromise. So I calmly stated my position. I choose to believe in God, and I won't regret my choice. Before leaving, Winbin asked me why I didn't choose him, and he wondered if he hadn't been good enough to me. I said, "No, you have been good to me. In the past, I thought marriage was a big part of life, but after finding God, I understood that getting married is not the most important thing in life. If I gave up my faith to be with you, though on the surface life may seem easy and blissful with physical enjoyment, what would be the meaning of living life this way? Wouldn't I be living like a walking corpse? Is life just about eating, drinking, and having fun muddling along and waiting to die? What value would such a life have? You pursue physical enjoyment and a life of superiority, but these are not the things I want. I seek to live a true life, to live out a real human likeness, and to receive the Creator's approval. We're walking different paths, and we will never reach the same destination." Winbin fell silent after hearing this, and our relationship came to an end. Later, I reflected on why I was so distressed when making the choice between marriage and faith. I came across a passage of God's words.
Almighty God says, "The pernicious influences and futile thinking left deep in the human heart through thousands of years of national spirit have bound and chained people, leaving them without an iota of freedom, with no ambition or perseverance, and no desire to make progress, having them instead remain negative and regressive, entrenched in a slave mentality, and so on. These objective factors have imparted an indelible, filthy, and ugly cast to the ideological outlook, aspirations, morality, and disposition of humanity. Humans, it would seem, are living in a dark world of terrorism, and none among them thinks of transcending it, or thinks of moving on to an ideal world. Rather, they spend their days with a sense of contentment toward their lot in life, bearing and raising children, striving, sweating, going about their labor, and dreaming of having a comfortable and happy family, of conjugal affection, of filial children, of joy in their twilight years, and of peacefully living out their lives. For tens of thousands of years until now, people have been squandering their time in this way, with no one creating the most splendid of all human lives, intent only on mutual slaughter, the race for fame and gain, and intriguing against one another in this dark world. Who has ever sought after God's intentions? Has anyone ever heeded the work of God? All the parts of people occupied by the influence of darkness have long since become human nature, and so it is quite difficult to carry out the work of God, and people have even less heart to pay attention to what God has entrusted to them today.
After reading God's words, I understood why it was so difficult for me to choose between marriage and faith. I had been indoctrinated from a young age by TV dramas that had taught me life is precious, love even more so, and love is supreme. These ideas had influenced and poisoned my mind. I thought that the happiest thing in life was to find someone who loved you, and for you both to grow old together and support one another. Especially when I saw the female leads being cared for by the male leads in every way. I thought they were very happy, and I fallaciously believed that finding someone who loved you meant your life wasn't being lived in vain. Seeing Winbin so strongly oppose my faith and asking me to choose between him and my faith filled me with feelings of pain and conflict. And I thought that if I couldn't spend my life with someone who loved me, then my life would have no meaning. By eating and drinking God's words, I finally understood that having love is not what makes a meaningful life. Just like how, even though Winbin was always thoughtful and caring toward me, I still often felt empty and helpless. And it was only by reading God's words that my heart found comfort. I realized that the emptiness of the heart cannot be filled by material enjoyment or the care of a partner. Ideas like love is supreme and life is precious, love even more so, are all Satan's devilish words to deceive people. And Satan tries to use these to tempt and deceive us, making us blindly pursue love and marriage and treat these things as the right things to pursue, ultimately causing us to stray from God, betray God, and lose our chance at salvation. If it hadn't been for the enlightenment and guidance of God's words, I would have chosen marriage and missed the chance to pursue the truth and be saved by God. Thinking about this, my resolve to follow and believe in God became even more resolute. Through Winbin repeatedly standing in the way of my faith, I gradually saw through to his essence. Winbin appeared gentle, approachable, and friendly, but he was an atheist, and whenever he heard about my faith, he would get angry and his eyes would turn red. His revelations were filled with hostility, and he had the essence of a demon. As God says, all those who do not believe, as well as the ones who do not practice the truth, are demons. A normal person, even if they do not accept faith, will not be hostile. Only demons hate God, and Winbin truly had the essence of a demon. I then read God's words. Almighty God says, "Why does a husband love his wife? Why does a wife love her husband? Why do children show filial piety to their parents? Why do parents dote on their children? What is the intent that people all harbor? Isn't it to fulfill their own plans and selfish desires?" I thought about how Winbin was kind toward me because I didn't spend money recklessly like other girls, nor did I have any bad habits. I was also good to his parents. I worked hard for his family, and I wasn't afraid to get my hands dirty or break a sweat. These things benefited him. But when he found out that I believed in God, he worried that I wouldn't earn money with him. And as this affected his interests, he became particularly resentful and resistant. Whenever I mentioned faith, he would scold and belittle me without considering my feelings at all. I hadn't married him yet, and I hadn't really impacted his interests, and yet he was already treating me like this. After we married, once I began to dedicate myself to my duty, he would be sure to obstruct and persecute me more, and might even divorce me. How could there be any happiness with someone who prioritizes personal interests and hates God? After breaking up with Winbin, I felt much more at ease in my heart, and I could read God's words, attend gatherings, and do my duties without constraints. I thought about how being able to witness God's appearance in this final age, accept being cleansed and perfected by God's words, and fulfill the duty of a created being is truly a great blessing. And my heart felt full of sweetness and joy. Now I can fully dedicate myself to my faith and my duty. This is God's love and salvation for me, and I thank God from the bottom of my heart.